Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the second episode of the Writers Hub. I'm your host, Gabriel Garcia, the Wandering Quill and the Wandering Scribe. And joining me today are two incredible people that need no introduction. If you remember them from their first interview on the show, they were my first double author feature, which I absolutely love going back to their interview. They are an incredible dynamic duo of the hit sci-fi series, The Parallax, with origin, adaptation, and of course, evolution. They are also working on a slew of other projects in the works, which we'll be talking about towards the end. And in today's episode, viewers and listeners, we'll be talking about a subject that my guests have a lot of experience in, and that is, of course, collaboration and co-authoring on projects and books. So without further ado, I am so happy to have these two incredible people making their second appearance on the show, Matt and Lauren. You guys, welcome back to the show.
Oh, thanks for having us.
Thank you so much. Thrilled to be here.
Awesome. Again, I am so happy that you guys are back, and I've been looking forward to this all month. So it's just so excited to have you guys back. And for viewers now learning about you for the very first time, would you like to officially introduce yourselves as well as your backgrounds in the creative industry?
Sure,
we can do. Oh, I go first.
Yeah, you go first.
And also, congratulations on the new show. It's very exciting. We're really happy.
Thank you.
My name is Matt Conant. I am a writer, an author, content producer, creative director, all sorts of things, show creator. Yeah, all over the road. So I've written for TV. I'm a writer on the show Mystery Science Theater 3000, if anyone has seen that. And I have pitched and sold a couple of shows to like Amazon and HBO Max over the years, and now am a published author with my writing partner, Lauren Cipollo.
Yes.
And we also run a game company, or co-run a game company called Cinevore Games. And we're now working in the tabletop arena as well.
Yeah, super exciting. Also, and a writer, scripts, novels, you name it. Really excited to be launching the game company. We have a game that we are currently pitching called Stoker and Wells, Authors of Fate. It's based on a graphic novel of the same name, Stoker and Wells. So you guys should definitely look that up. It's a really great graphic novel. And the game is basically you get to fictionalize authors and be authors that go on adventures that are based on the novels that they wrote. So we're really excited about that one. And we have a couple more in the pipeline. So keep an eye on Cinevore Games.
Awesome. And I'll be linking all those down below in the description of this video, viewers and listeners. And for today's episode, as I mentioned in the introduction, we're going to be talking about a topic that Matt and Lauren have vast experience in, and that is, of course, co-authoring and collaboration on projects. Now, this is a topic that my friends actually discussed a few months ago at the California Writers Club, which was an incredible discussion, because when we think about, first creating something on our own, it's a daunting task. But then making the decision to bring someone on board and then collectively decide, okay, we're going to work on this. We're going to create this series or this creation, and balancing out, because it's two people with two different ideas of creativity, and sometimes it could be a hit or a miss. So Matt, Lauren, I guess let's start at how did you guys come to the decision to collaborate, and how did you know that it really worked well for you guys?
That is a great question. I think we first started collaborating on Parallax. Parallax started actually as a TTRPG. So we were working on mechanics, we were working on all of the things that you do to try and create a role-playing game. And I created this character based in the game that I really liked. And I just started writing about him. And I wrote, I don't know, 20,000 words, some novella,
very large number of words,
story about this guy. And I kind of brought it to Matt, and I'm like, I don't really know what to do with this. Like, I have this idea. I kind of wrote myself into a corner, like, so Matt read it. He thought it was really cool. And he's like, listen, I think we could, fill this out and turn this into a full story. Do you want me to help you? And I said, yeah. And that was kind of like how it started. So, we had never really collaboratively wrote anything together before. But we sat down and we brainstormed an outline. And then, it helped me write an entire novel, a 98,000 word novel.
Yeah.
And then we were like, oh, that went well. Should we keep doing that?
Yeah. And it was also just a great excuse to, see how we work together as collaborators, because a lot of times you'll start a collaboration with somebody and you don't hit it off, or you both have totally different ideas for something. But in this case, Lauren had a character that she really loved and understood and knew everything about. And I had this world that I had developed that I knew everything about. And I was like, well, here are the parts of the world I haven't shared with you yet. Are these of interest? Are these things you can use? And you're like, oh, great, my character would do this in this world. And so it sort of gradually meshed together, and like our ideas felt like they were building on each other as opposed to contradicting each other, which can sometimes happen in collaborations or so it was kind of a neat, like, okay, that went really well. And then she ended up inspiring me to write a book about a story set in the same universe that I had been planning, but had never actually sat down to write because I hadn't done novels to that point. So then before we knew it, we had 2 books, and then before we knew it, we had a trilogy. So it seems like it's working.
That's awesome. And honestly, viewers and listeners, if you have not read Origins, this is a really good book. And what makes Origins such a good story is that it's a blend of the 2 voices, because you're absolutely right that whenever you do go on this journey to collaborate or co-author a book, now this is me generally speaking, I have not gone into this direction, but I would imagine each author has their own writing style, and you could generally pick out, okay, who wrote this portion of the book, who wrote that portion of the book. I honestly could not tell. If you were to tell me who wrote what sections of the book, I would not believe you. And I think that is what makes the Parallax series so good, that it's a really good example of blending 2 authors, different styles into one cohesive voice. So I guess to start off this discussion, let's start at the beginning. So if someone were to go down the direction of co-authoring or collaborating with somebody, what is probably the first thing they should do or look at?
That's a good, it's a little bit tough to answer because there's a lot of different ways you can collaborate, right? So Matt and I collaborate in a way where we tend to brainstorm together, and then we'll kind of outline the story beats together, and then each of us kind of take a character and we'll write them out, and then we each edit each other's work. So you kind of mentioned how it doesn't really sound like one author or the other, because we go through each other's stuff so much that we do kind of end up blending it all together. But there are different ways that you can collaborate. Like there are some people who just kind of want to brainstorm the stuff together, and then one person writes it, so I think the first thing, in my opinion, the first thing that you want to do is figure out, how do we want to collaborate on this? Like how much of, do we want it to be 50-50 in the writing? How do we want to do that? I think figuring out your style is kind of what you'd want to do first.
Yeah, I think figuring out and talking about, communication being very important, making sure that you both collaborators want the same thing out of the collaboration. Like there are a lot of writing teams in Hollywood where one of the team members is really good at writing the outline, and the other one is really good at writing the first draft. And so they'll break it down that way, and then they'll go back through and edit the drafts after that and break it down however. But like sometimes you just want another mind to bounce ideas off of. Sometimes you really need help writing the outline. Sometimes you just like editing more than you like writing. There's a ton of reasons to collaborate. So, but finding something at a starter level, just like a brainstorm, to me always feels like the best way to know if you're actually going to enjoy writing with that person. Because if your ideas are clashing right off the bat, then maybe there's another collaboration for you, or maybe there's another way to work with that person.
That is very true. That is very true. And I also think, because I have dabbled at one point trying to co-author a book, and it was the one genre I had no experience in, and that was a historical romance, which, oh gosh, that it was not easy to do. And it was my friend's story. She initially wrote the rough outline. I reorganized it, and I realized, she was living in South Africa and was able to write, certain parts of the time. I was able to write it. But then I found myself, I'm writing a little bit more, and, how I'm approaching the story. I was like, I'm going to find this really good, but I don't know if my co-author is going to find this good. And, there are going to be some incidents like, oh, no, it's good. But I definitely think that could also be abused because, like, oh, they're really fine. You're not going to be mad. In that sense, that could be, they're just trying to be polite and not overstep, because that could also possibly break the collaboration. So would you guys also agree that a good co-author book or a good collaboration, there needs to be some communication, constant communication to hear both parties?
Yeah, absolutely. Communication's the primary thing that there needs to be. So if you're not on the same page as to why you want to work together or what your vision is for the project, sometimes I've known lots and lots of people who've been like, all right, we seem like we have similar sense of humor, or similar thought processes, or we like similar types of work. Let's try and work on this thing together. And then as they talk about it, they're like, actually, this feels more like your thing, or maybe you're not as into that. Like, I'll put that away and on a shelf for later, but let's figure out something else we can work on. And as long as both people talk about that, like, it's easier than getting way into the weeds on a project and realizing you have conflicting ideas about what you want out of it. So, like, ideally, when you mentioned that it's a daunting process to start a project, and it can be even more daunting to bring someone in. What I look for in a collaborator is, like, for that process to become far less daunting with the second person. Like, you want it taking work off of your shoulders and off of their shoulders, and not adding any extra, problems. So, like, to me, I'm just like, oh, great. If sometimes a writer will sit down to something and be like, I don't know why I'm even writing this. This doesn't feel like, is anyone ever going to read it? What do I do? Like, does anyone care? Like, am I kidding myself? Having a second person, for me, read it and be like, oh, that's actually good. I see where you're going. Maybe you could take it here. Then, like, oh yeah, great. Awesome. That's enough for me to be like, sometimes, yeah, great, this collaboration is working.
Motivation is a big part of it, I think, too. Another thing that I would mention too is that when you're working with someone, you're going to get notes, you're going to have opinions on what is being written, and they're going to have opinions on what you're writing. Just make sure when you're giving criticism, just make sure it's constructive. Like, don't go in there and just be like, why did you write? Think about, is what I'm going to say, is that helping the story? Am I helping tell the story in a more productive way? So, and realize that you're also going to get notes too, and don't take them personally. Like, that was the funny thing about Matt and I working together, is that I used to write a long time ago, and then there was a long time where I didn't. So when we started working on Parallax together, it had been a long time since I had written anything. So I needed to be reminded on how to write. So Matt would give me these notes and be like 10, step 10 feet away and be like, it's okay. And I'm like, no, I want to get better. I want this to be the best story that it can be. So just, try to be in the mindset of, you're giving this information, and you should be taking, the information as, this is going to make the story better. So that's just something that's sometimes hard for some writers, because writing can be very insular. It can be very lonely if you've only ever done it with yourself, and then to hear someone else immediately before you're even done start giving you notes can sometimes be hard.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And this kind of goes into another thing which I have seen, and actually have heard from other writers, and that is, of course, almost like what we talked about on your guys' first interview, which is, understanding your voice, but also understanding the genre. If you are writing in a genre, that you both are interested in, I've noticed that there's been a kind of a paradigm shift in terms of like, okay, what is trending now in that genre as opposed to what was popular 20 years ago, and balancing out the two voices in between. And again, the readership, all that needs to be considered. So I guess ultimately for that stage, what do you think would probably be like a good, I guess, mediator, in a sense of, let's say one person has only written books for a YA audience, and they bring in a collaborator who may have a little bit more experience, but they write adult fiction, completely separate age group, a lot more freedom, but conflict of interest because one's writing for young teens and young adults, the other has more experience for adults. So again, that balancing act, and ultimately it boils down to, should you collaborate with someone who is exactly in your genre, or possibly someone that may have more experience in one aspect of the writing?
Yeah, I mean, I think it does depend on what you were trying to do with your book. Like, if you really want to write a YA book and your collaborator is used to writing adult fiction, but they want to help with it or they want to be involved in some way, then it's kind of up to you to have that conversation early on, I think, like, where you're like, which way do we want to take this? Do we want this to feel like a young adult coming of age story or a teen romance or something like that? Or do we want this to be like, lots of whatever it may be, to like action adventure or adult situations or blood and gore or whatever the thing is? And sort of knowing that up front, because if you get into it where you're each writing a chapter or something and the mood, the tone swings wildly from one chapter to another, it won't feel cohesive in the same way. So yeah, I mean, how did you experience it with your writing partner when you said she was in South Africa, you were?
It definitely was a challenge, because I was at a stage in my writing journey where I had not written a story that was a little bit more present in the sense, and I use that term loosely. It was set in the 1800s. And up until that point, I had only written everything in the past from like Roman, Greek era. So writing something that was a little bit more, in the mind that people can like, oh, I've seen books like that. It was something completely alien to me and something I'd never considered. So it was a struggle. It absolutely was a struggle. And the one thing we definitely had a lot of discussion on is, of course, the ending of how the story should end. And I'm curious, when you guys worked on Origin and you guys, developed your voice, and people understood, okay, that is the voice of this book series. As a team, how did you make that consistent with the second or the next two books? Because I would imagine that was a daunting task to make sure that the endings for both books were sound, but the overall ending for the series felt satisfying.
Yeah, that was a bit of a daunting task. So we wrote this trilogy in the worst way possible, which was to write two separate books that weren't quite connected. And then we were like, oh no, these books aren't quite connected. But we have like a trilogy's worth of material here. How can we connect them and make them a coherent story? So we honestly had to like break down the books and almost like fold them together like a deck of cards, like take all the chapters and chop it all up and put it together. But you're right, we did have to be really cognizant of, where does book one end? Where does book two end? And then how does it work as a trilogy? Because, you can end books on a cliffhanger, and that's kind of rude. So we tried not to do that too much. But we really did, when we kind of wrote the first book and then had books 2 and 3 sort of 75-ish% done. And then, so when we went to Athon, we only had the one finished. And then they were like, well, we'd really love it to be a trilogy. So we're like, we'll get this done. So we had to go back and really go through and re-outline and make sure that we hit all of the points so that when we ended book 1, we're like, okay, this is a good ending point. Did we, finish any personal arcs of the characters? You can always use that as kind of an ending point. What were they trying to do in the beginning of the book? Did we pay that off by the end? We know that there's this bigger thing that has to go until the end of the series, but did we at least pay off something that they were working on in the first book? And that's kind of how we looked at it through all 3 books. Like, they're all working on something in each book, and like, how can we make that ending feel satisfying by completing some part of the mission, and then leaving, all the crazy stuff until the end. So it was a lot of breaking it down and rebuilding it again.
Yeah, I mean, we if you think about having 2 complete books that you're merging together, the beginning of book 1 and the end of book 3 are going to be the parts that are the most solid. So everything in the middle kind of was nebulous, and we had to sort of rebuild all of those individual sort of like, what is the secondary character doing in book 2 from beginning to end that feels like a plot for them? And so we added a lot of stuff in the middle that also ties into the overall plot, so that would feel like a single, like a whole.
Yeah.
And we also found the pieces between the 2 books we had originally written, like, oh, this is actually like 4 or 5 plot lines that they are all working on just coincidentally, that we can sort of tie pieces of this together, and the astute reader will find all of those weird plot threads and be like, oh, I see what's going on in the background here. So
yeah, it seemed like, that's the one thing that's fun when you're working with a collaborator, is that they can help you find those little things, those little breadcrumbs that you can put throughout your story. Because sometimes you just, again, like, you get so into it, you're so close to it, that it's hard to take that step back and like see the whole thing. Because you're really just like, let me write this book, like, let me get it done. So having another set of eyes is just so helpful to like be like, ooh, this character did this, and that can mean that this happens later. And it just, it's really, really helpful. I also want to mention, because I feel like this is kind of a thought that a lot of people have when they are nervous to collaborate, because they kind of feel like it's not theirs anymore. They're like, oh, I have this idea, and now I'm talking with this other person, so it's like not mine. And I just, like, I want to say personally, I've never felt like that. Like, Matt and I have done things together, and just because he helped me write a thing, it's still mine. It was still my idea, and I helped him write things, and they're still his idea, and there's still things that he did. So that nobody's like taking credit from one another. Nobody did anything better than one another. Like, you really, if you're both wanting to tell a good story, you're just helping each other. So, that's the most important, I think, mindset for if you want to collaborate with somebody, is just like, are we both trying to tell the best story possible? Because I know people just they get like, they get a little nervous, and they want to hold on to their thing, but nobody's stealing anything from you.
Yes, that is very true. And Lauren, actually, thank you for actually bringing that up, because that was actually going to be my next question, which is, kind of like the myths surrounding collaborations, and kind of like, the stereotypes about, people who do collaborate. It's like, oh, the idea is not really mine anymore, or, they're working on it more. It's slowly becoming theirs. So in addition to that, are there any other sort of myths you guys like to debunk about co-authors and collaborations?
I don't know. I think the any of the myths are there for a reason. Like, there are definitely all of those things can happen.
Yeah.
Excuse me. All of those things can happen where there's where the collaboration does become someone, or someone is trying to steal something from someone else, and that's why it's become these cautionary tales. But that's why it's kind of important to know, like, to every project that I've been drawn to work on with a collaborator, like Lauren or anyone else, is when something about their idea has struck me, where I'm like, I think something in my brain or something I will add to this. This will improve the story potentially. If they don't like it and they don't want me to do that, that's fine. They can tell me that, and I can back off and go do my own thing over here, and maybe I'll use that idea later. But this idea really does make the whole greater than, the sum of the parts. And other people have come to me with story ideas like that, and I'm like, oh, actually, that piece does work really well here. And sometimes they're like, I don't want to work on that. That's your project. You do it. I don't care. Take my idea, and I'm happy with that. And sometimes I've said that to them, So, like, that's an important conversation to have up front. And and a lot of people in LA and in Hollywood are like, don't tell me your ideas. I can't hear them. I'm not allowed. Like, I'm working on something similar and it's going to be a conflict of interest, or I'm under NDA, or like whatever.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
That kind of thing. So all of that is there for a reason. But if you're going into it with like open minds and discussing it clearly as to what you want out of it, then I think you can diffuse a lot of that up front.
Yeah, that's where, the open communication that we mentioned, like just keep communicating. If somebody's not talking to you about something, it's not a great sign. So, as long as you guys are talking to each other and you each understand what you're trying to get out of it, you can avoid a lot of that happening.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And this actually kind of goes into, there's a little fan questions that I'm going to ask you guys. Some of my viewers have actually brought these, and these are actually fun ones.
Oh, cool.
So I guess the first fan question for you guys. So when you guys began co-authoring the first book, what was your favorite scene or moment from Origins?
That's a good question. I really liked, there's a very emotionally charged scene towards the end of the book between one of the main characters, Hemlock, and another character that I won't name in case you haven't read it yet. That I really enjoyed writing it, and I was very nervous that it was boring. Like, it's not things exploding. It's not, I mean? It's not like
it's not typical, the end of a Marvel movie.
Right, yeah. It's not your typical like sci-fi ending, but it was emotionally very high, and I very much enjoyed writing that. And Matt had read that scene and like said, no, it's good, like we should end here, like this is a good way to do it. So I really loved how much emotion that I was able to weave into this sci-fi series. I really enjoyed doing that, especially that ending scene.
Yeah, I think And one of the things I really loved about collaborating with Lauren in this is that my brain works in a very I will answer your question. This is an aside, but my brain works in a very like story and plot and world way. That's how I think of it first. And like, it's really better to write a lot of the time thinking character first, and like, this is what the characters would do. And Lauren did, like, all of her scenes had, even if there wasn't necessarily a lot of action happening, there was still this depth of emotion to everything they were doing, and all the actions felt like they were earned, like they all made sense for those characters. So the book kind of does like this tonal wave throughout it, where we tried to make it that all of the stuff in all the stories builds to an action point and then comes back down at around the same time, so it's not disorienting to the reader, but it was great to have emotional depth even to the slow scenes, and I think you helped me add that to the chapters I was writing too for my characters. But now I forget your question, but favorite scenes. Yes, so I think one of my favorite scenes is actually one of the first scenes I wrote in the book, which is not the first scene of the book. I wrote a short story first, and I wrote the first scene that I wrote in Origin is a scene of one of the main characters, Paige. She's a corporate peacekeeper, dropping onto, like, basically drop on a drop ship coming down to a new planet that's like on the edge, and there's a lot of political tension, and there's some new people who've never been to the edge before, and they're all excited about what's going to happen, and the scene kind of goes to hell in a number of ways. And that was the first time when I was like, this is the world, this is where this setting's going to happen. I don't quite know what this character's story is yet, but this is what's going to be there. And then I sort of wrote the rest of it forward and backward from that point. Like, here's where she would start, here's what her motivations are to get to this point, and then here's what she actually is trying to do. So that's still one of my favorite scenes, because everyone that reads it is like kind of gut wrenched by it, which feels right for that moment.
Nice. Okay. And that actually kind of goes to the next fan question, which is, what was probably the most challenging scene in Origins?
Oh man, challenging.
I've got an answer for that, so I'll go first. So for me, one of my favorite things, I'm a sci-fi and a fantasy writer, but I'm also a comedy writer. So my default at all times is to riff on, so write a straight storyline and then to add jokes on top of it. This is not a comedy series, so I had to strip a lot of that out. But I've got a lot of like sarcastic like characters in this who are just trying, you know, you use them for moments of levity when the scene would otherwise be very heavy. There's a lot of heavy stuff in the book. So that was fine when they're doing it one at a time, but when you have 3 or 4 sarcastic characters in the same scene together, they start to riff on top of one another, and it can just go forever.
Right.
And the scene is fun, but like Lauren had to come to me at one point and be like, they're in a battle for their lives right now. Like
they're all just making snappy comments. We gotta.
I think I know the scene you're talking about. I'm not going to spoil it, but I know the scene you're referring to.
It could, yeah, probably. And we stripped a lot out, so
Yeah.
it's like less comedic than it would have been otherwise. But yeah, we wanted to make sure it was still tense. Like to me, I love a lot of the Marvel movies, a lot of like Spider-Man movies and things like that. But like sometimes if the main character or the main villain isn't taking it seriously, if they're joking all the time, my heart rate is just flat. Like I don't buy the tension. I don't buy that their lives are in danger because they're so nonchalant about it. And I'm like, you need to once in a while be like, oh crap, this is important. I will joke about this after that guy's gone, but right now need to handle it. So when it's just quick, it can really take me out of it at least. So I try to avoid that.
Yeah, I think I have the opposite problem from that, where I try to make my characters too sad. I don't make them funny. I make them sad. So I tend to pile on all of their problems before I resolve the other ones. And then that has to kind of do the same thing to me, where he's like, can we not as many problems? Like maybe this to be dealing with this and this and this. And I'm like, oh, okay, all right. So, you know, trying to find that balance of, I want people to also feel, you know, emotional in these scenes that I'm writing, but it's like, you don't need to beat your characters into the ground, have people feel bad for them. They feel bad for them. It's okay. So just, you know, finding that balance of, you know, emotional struggle, you know, outside, you know, struggles that they're dealing with and that kind of stuff. I tend to go a little overboard on, so he keeps me.
Yes. And again, a beautiful answer. And I know the scene that they're referring to, viewers and listeners, but I'm not going to spoil it because it's a really, really good scene. That's why you have to buy the book to read the whole thing entirely. And speaking of the book, this also goes to another thing I really wanted to ask you guys, which is, so as you guys have mentioned, you guys have your own stories, your own different writing styles. And even though this isn't a fan question, this was brought to my attention from a good friend of mine who said, in those scenarios where, you know, you're co-authoring a book, you love the characters that you worked on, has there ever been almost like a discussion to take one of those characters and write a solo or standalone novel on their own? Has that ever come up when writing the characters for the Parallax series?
We've thought about spin-offs. Absolutely. When I, you know, need a break from like writing, you know, something else that I'm working on, I'll have a tendency to just write short stories about my characters, like stuff they were doing before these books happened, you know, whatever. So we actually have a decent bit of material that we could put into a book or, you know, collection of short stories or something like that. Like, it's fun to think that each of these characters has a life like outside of this story that we're telling. Because I just think all of those experiences that they're having over here are going to affect the novel that we're telling here. Like, one of our side characters, Sydney, tells a story to Hemlock that I wrote, like it's a short story that I wrote somewhere else. I have that entire thing, that entire experience written somewhere else, and she just mentions it in one sentence in the book, but it's like a memory, a thing that she experienced. So it's fun to kind of do stuff like that. I think we would love to complete this whole series first before we wrote standalone novels, but I do feel like these characters have entire lives pretty much that we could tell other stories about. If we
I think we have them. They are fleshed out enough in our brains that we could tell all of those stories. And if there was, you know, audience demand for like, I need to know more about this character, then that story would happen. But yes, we have this is a trilogy. It's a complete story. It
Mhm.
tells a full adventure over and several other side adventures
Mhm.
over the course of the trilogy. But we have at least another trilogy planned for most of these leads. A couple of them will fall off, like secondary characters
Mhm.
may not be in the second trilogy because their story's kind of resolved in one way or another. But
Right.
so maybe those characters are the ones that get side novels. Who knows?
Absolutely, absolutely. And now this brings up a really, really important question, which I've been saving for you guys because I really want to hear you guys' thoughts on. And for context for this, so, since I had you guys last on the show, I've had new guests appear and getting new insight. And of course, the one thing that I've been asking my guests this very important question is, of course, artificial intelligence in the publishing industry. And the one thing that I've talked about with a lot of my friends that I meet on Fridays is, of course, AI being almost seen as a pseudo co-author. And I was going to say that sparked a very heated debate because I have my own stance on AI in the publishing industry. I mentioned you guys have your own opinions, may or less be the same thing. But as co-authors and authors in general, do you think AI being almost as seen as that silent co-author is as extreme as people are making it out to be, and it's going to die out? And also, even though I kind of know the answer to this, do you think it also takes away from the creativity process of the human experience, because what AI does is that it mass produces a false sense of creativity in the publishing industry?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, we're not, I'm not ashamed to say it. We don't use AI when we write. I don't feel that it should be used as a co-author. It's not a co-author, it's a robot. It's a robot that skims information and kind of spits it back out at you. It's a great tool for like keeping things organized. Like if you need to do it for that, sure. But anytime that you're writing, that you're creating, I don't think it should be a part of the creative process.
Yeah, I agree. There is a chance that it gets to some point in the future where it becomes like difficult to distinguish what's human and what isn't, but there are some telltale signs of AI being used, and it just feels flat. It feels unemotional. It feels inhuman.
It's that uncanny valley.
It's like
you're like too close, but something's wrong.
A little bit,
Yes.
yeah. It's like it feels like in some cases you just, the autocomplete on your phone when you just like someone says like, "Hey, where are you right now? How can you find you?" It'd be like just hitting the middle answer for every word like 20 times. And you're like, well, that is a sentence. It's not a sentence that means anything to anyone emotionally.
Yeah,
It doesn't
or
even
that
really
I would write.
No, it's not a sentence I would write. So it's I guess the phone co-authored that sentence, but is it good? Did it help the final product? Did it make your friend happy to hear from you? Probably not.
That is very true. And probably my little side tangent, and I now started using this, and it's so funny, but it is very true. This actually was a guest I had on the show who said using AI to write a story in any capacity is like asking an alcoholic seventh grader to write the book for you. It's not going to be the best. You're going to end up being the editor, and you're going to realize that's what you are in this stage. You're not the author, you're the editor, and it's not going to be your voice. People are going to find out about it, and there's just a lot of things. But you actually are right that AI could be used in a way to like help organize, which I definitely think is very, very important, especially if you're working with another author on a project. So in that regard, if you were to tell, or if someone wanted to work on a book with another and they were asking for advice, what's probably the first thing you would do in terms of like, after brainstorming, what will be the next thing to do in terms of like keeping all the ideas together and just in a place to find?
Okay. I think, to me, after brainstorming is sort of the outline process or a synopsis, nothing else. You need to know where, for me, some people are some people are pantsers as opposed to plotters, as they say.
Yeah.
Write by the seat of their pants as opposed to writing everything out.
Mhm.
If I do that, I can do it for a short story, but if I do it for a novel, I'll be lost a third of the way through, and I'll be like, where was this going? What was the point? My character has done a different thing than I expected. So outlining is next. I need to see, like, if this happens in chapter 1 and this happens in chapter 5 and 10, even if it's not chapter by chapter, there are a ton of screenwriting books and things that I've been been following my whole career of, like, this has to happen by the end of Act 1. This has to happen in the midpoint. This happens at the end of Act 2, so that it feels like a satisfying book. And so for us, we tend to outline books that way.
Yeah, I hate outlining. I'm not gonna sit here and be I love outlining. It's hard. It's hard.
It is.
And break it down and really, get everything from beginning to end. But it is so helpful. And I like to call it it's like a living document. Like, you have this outline. That doesn't mean things can't change, but at least you're trying to get from A to B. And if something else happens in the middle and you end up getting to C, that's fine. But at least you're still on track. And it's arduous for me. Some people love it, but I'm so thankful once we have it done, because then I feel like almost this freedom where I'm just like, yep, I know exactly what I'm going to write next. And now I know where the characters have to go next, and so on and so on.
Yeah. And I'll say, back to your previous question, I feel like that's a place that AI is not remotely caught up yet. Like, if it tried to start a story and construct that, it would keep adding characters, it would keep adding stories, it would just branch and branch and branch. It's not good at being like, this is your solid through line beginning to end. It's just going to make a bunch of stuff that sort of flies off into the ether, and unless you're good enough as a writer to hone it back in, and even then it's like, I guess, sorry to dwell on AI, but
yeah,
it's also why do you want to write? Do you want to be a writer or not? Like, are you doing this for money? Are you just trying to crank out a book as fast as possible? Because I guess it can do that, but you're still not going to make money. Like, none of us are making money.
Yeah, we're storytellers. We want to tell our story.
It's fun to write. It should be enjoyable as a process. If you're not enjoying it, why are you having a robot write it for you instead? Just do
that is true. Else. That is absolutely very, very true. What is your why? Why did you go down this path? Because it's not easy being an author. It's long hours. Sometimes it'll take years to get the first draft finished, because life happens and life will throw you a curveball, and it sucks. And ultimately, you won't be the same author you were when you started writing to when you finish it. You're going to be completely different. And this kind of goes back to, the beginning of the discussions, like, where to begin. And this actually comes from another viewer who actually had a very specific question. One I don't think you guys may have possibly touched on at the writers' meeting, or maybe someone did, but maybe didn't have enough time to answer it. And the viewer said, this viewer, who as anonymous, actually gave a really sweet thing before the question, which is, Lauren and Matt, I just want to say, absolutely love Origins. I'm just now listening to Gabriel's review of it, and I'm thrilled that this is my new favorite book. I'm very curious, though, since you guys are very passionate about collaborating and are such great storytellers, if someone were to jump into this new direction, what would be the best type of storytelling to ease them in, i.e. novella, dual POVs, a choose your own adventure story? What would be a good icebreaker into that direction of co-authoring and collaboration?
Like to write their own, like if they want to co-author?
Yes. Okay. Ultimately will be like a good foot in the door for that type of writing.
Go ahead.
I mean, I do like, if you're like, I don't know if we're going to work well together, do a short story, do a novella, like do something short, because they're like, okay, I can write 10 chapters or whatever it is, and you can write 10 chapters. And oh my gosh, there we go. We have a book. And if you're 5 chapters in and things are breaking down, you're like, well, at least we didn't, try to write 300 pages and get this all done. Just kind of worked out the way Matt and I were doing things. But if you're like, I want to try this out, then try something short.
Yeah, I would say whatever you won't hate yourself doing.
Yeah.
Like I've never picked a genre because I'm like, this is going to be the thing that is easiest to collaborate on, or the thing that's going to sell the best, or the thing that people want to read. It's the thing I will enjoy writing. So if you if you love reading high fantasy, write a high fantasy. If you love reading romance, write a romance, because you've got all of that in you already. And if you're like, I want to write a romance, and your collaborator wants to write, a historical documentary, like, or something that's different, they're not going to be, you should work with another collaborator or find what the blend is that's making that collaboration worthwhile.
Yeah.
But yeah, to me, it's just like, am I going to enjoy this project? And if I'm not if it doesn't sound fun,
right,
if I'm already not having fun in the brainstorming phase, it's just going to get worse from there. So
yeah, that's like the biggest thing between like working with Matt, is that we just feel like we like exponentially raise each other's motivation. Like we talk about a thing and then I get excited to write, and then he gets excited to write, and it just like bounces and gets, our motivation just grows and grows. So that's really what you're looking for. If you're excited to work on a thing, then that's great. Start there. It can be the silliest thing ever. It can be a Mad Libs. Like, it doesn't matter. Just work on something that you're excited to work on.
Yeah, we have a fantasy novel that we just have completed and have not published yet. So that's the next thing coming out. But the way we wrote that one was much more a way I would recommend people write, which was, we had the story basically beginning end, we outlined it, and like, we would basically switch off the two leads. There's only two leads. There's a lot more than that in Parallax, but there's two, and they're basically in the same place the whole time. Occasionally they'll drift apart, but mostly they're on the same adventure at the same time. So we just switched off point of views. I took one character, Lauren took the other, and Lauren wrote chapter 1, I wrote chapter 2, she wrote chapter 3, and we just went back and forth. So the same story is being told, but you're seeing their emotions evolve and their story evolve together.
Okay.
That way, every time Lauren finished a chapter, it was my turn to write. So I was excited to read her chapter and be like, ooh, great, where does this end? Where does it leave off? Even if it didn't exactly match the outline, I was like, great, I can pick it up here from his point of view and then write the next part. And then you were excited to read that, because then you got to write the other. So that was fun. That we blasted through that book in like 3 months, as opposed to 2 years, which Parallax took all told. So
you just have to like, and you're right. Like, you may not figure that out like the first time you work on something, but we had a blast working on Parallax together. Again, never would recommend writing a book like that to anyone. We'll never do it again. But then we tried a different way and did even better. So, just because, as long as you're having fun, you can just keep trying different ways till you find the best way that works for you.
Absolutely, 100%. And also, thank you for telling me that you guys are working on a fantasy book, because now that's going to be another book I'm going to be adding to my long library of books. Definitely going to buy that physical copy when it comes out, and definitely going to get it signed from both of you when I next see you guys. But that is ultimately, so true, so very, very true. And here's actually another fan question from another one of my viewers, and it's actually a really good one. It's actually I started using these questions more in my interviews lately, and they've got like really good discussions. So for this one, for you guys, so when you began co-authoring collaboration, what surprised you in the sense of the business side? Because when you go into the industry as an author solo, it's one thing, but when you go together, it's entirely different. And the follow-up to that, they ask, is there anything you guys would have done differently in terms of marketing, promoting, writing the book, or your other projects that you are currently working on?
As far as promoting, I don't think so. Like, there's always like a little bit of weirdness where you're like, oh, there's going to be two names. Like, oh, we did go through a moment where we're like, do we come up with a pen name? Like, do we put our names together and just have one name on the bottom of the book to not confuse people? And we tried and we tried and we tried, and we couldn't come up with anything that we liked. So we're like, you know what? Forget it. We're just going to put both of our names on it because we both wrote it. Like, let's get credit for what we did. And I don't feel any weirdness about that at all. Like, and I honestly think people come to us and ask us a lot of cool questions like you are, and, like asking about how writing collaboratively works. And I think I think it's kind of cool, honestly.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of times if you're using a pen name, it's like The Expanse was written by 2 people, but they go by one pen name of James S.A. Corey. And, you know, a lot of people read the book are like, I didn't even realize that was 2 authors. And we were like, well, we like questions about collaboration. We like talking to people about collaborating. We don't want to have to like bury that part of it. Like, let's just be honest with who we are and what we're doing, and how we write. So why not? But yeah, I don't think so. A lot of the promotion was like we did everything we could on our social media networks and stuff, but we also made the choice to spend 6 months or a year reaching out to publishers, small publishers, agents, and everyone else that we could, where we're really close to self-publishing the book, and then we happened to get interest from a couple of small publishers where so that we could pick one, choose between them. And I feel like Athon, who we went with, was a great choice for what we were doing. And they did a lot of promotion for us and with us. So that helped. Like, it's the reason that thousands of people have bought these books instead of our 50 closest friends, you know?
And honestly, like, I don't think having both of our names on the cover made a difference at all. Like, one name or 2 names, I don't think it.
We'll never know.
We will never know, but I don't think it really made that much of a difference. Like I said, I think it's interesting. Like, people are like, oh, you wrote this together? Oh, that's kind of cool. So it actually sparks more interest.
Yeah, I think so.
And that is true. And again, I can't say enough good things about Origins, viewers and listeners. It is a really great book. And it was probably the first co-author book that I had read in a very, very long time. And I'm so glad I picked it up because it is such a great book. I still am probably just beginning halfway through adaptations, which that's probably why you didn't see my bookmark. It fell out, but I don't want to give too many spoilers, but adaptations, oh my goodness, it is better than the first, viewers and listeners. That's all I'm going to say. It is such a great read, and I cannot wait to see what evolutions have. Now, there are a few last questions I want to ask you guys before we end, and this one is probably one I've been thinking about a lot recently in terms of like co-authoring and collaboration, and actually goes back into the pen name thing, especially now more than ever. The publishing industry is now bringing in, spice books or, books that may be a little bit pushing it, and the power or the strength to say no. And I think we may have talked about this on your guys' interview before, or maybe not. But I think that is also an important thing to discuss in terms of like, co-authoring, collaborating with somebody, because, these guys are really good, but what they're writing about, how detailed they are, it's like, okay, this is like too much. And having that power to say no. So I would love to hear your guys' thoughts on that aspect of the co-author process.
Yeah, I think it's all about like, what are you comfortable writing? And again, like it really all just kind of it boils down to that one thing, like, why are you writing it? So, if you're like, I want to try something new, I want to try and expand, my breadth of work and what I'm doing. I want to get a little spicy. So I want to work with this particular author. But of course, you're totally within your rights to be like, whoops, nope, that was a little too much for me. Or, you have to look at what's being written and be like, well, this is the story that we really wanted to write. I have to be comfortable with going a little outside of my zone. So you just have to, I think you just really kind of need to decide, like, here's my absolute limit. And if you hit your limit, then I feel like there's nothing wrong with saying no.
Yeah, of course. Definitely be honest with yourself and your co-author as to what it is you want to write and what kind of audience you're trying to reach. Like, we basically put this story together without necessarily considering the audience. We just saw it as a fun story to tell, an adventure and a mystery. And we like space opera, so we went to the things we love, like Firefly and Battlestar Galactica and Star Trek and Star Wars and all of that. And we were like, how do we jam as much of that and cyberpunk, like put that all into one plot? And here's what you get with some unique twists, I think, of our own. But none of that particularly was is spicy content in our case. Like none of those influences are like, oh, this is really about that. So we didn't bother. Like there are a couple of sort of fade to black scenes like you might get on, network television, which starts to get spicy, but it doesn't really go in that direction because that's not what that story's about. Right. But and like honestly, there's a large amount of the sci-fi audience that doesn't want that in their books, and that's not why they're reading books. Or if they do want that, they're going to a totally different part of the library or whatever. So, yeah, in that case, it wasn't relevant particularly to it, but it's a thing. If you and your partner, your collaborator, both want to write that, then go for it, and whatever you want to write. Really, it's still all about communication. So
yes. Very, very true. And this next question goes back to either talking about how the series you were working on took less time than Origins. And it actually goes back to what you guys mentioned at the Writers Club, which is, routine or a schedule, which again goes back to discussions of what works. So after you guys, hashed out, okay, this is the idea of the story, this is A, B, and C from beginning to end, what was sort of like your guys' routine that kept you both accountable of the creative process? And in your guys' opinion, do you think that co-authors need a form of schedule or routine?
That we did. I mean, we made up some arbitrary deadlines because it's good. It's always good to have a deadline. They weren't anything, like we don't make it. It was okay, but it was just nice to be like, okay, we would really like to have this much done by such and such date. And I felt like we did a good job of like kind of keeping ourselves on track. The fantasy book really kind of flew out of us. Like that one, I think we had an arbitrary date for it, and we like beat it by like 3 days, and I wanted to beat it by like 7 days, and I was mad at myself. So like, making, deadlines and things are good, but I don't think you need to live by them. Routines they're good too, because if you're not, just writing, you don't want it to take years to get a book done. Right. So I think, some kind of schedule is probably good.
Yeah, it's going to be different for everybody because some people have full-time jobs, some people have kids and families and friends and lives that they want to have. So if you can't write every day, like some writers, like you have to write 5,000 words a day, you have to get through whatever it is. And that's great if that works for you. If being in a routine is the thing that like makes you get up in the morning, like, great, I got to write 5,000 words before lunchtime, and then I can take the rest of my day and enjoy it. Awesome. You're going to learn that about yourself as you go. Some days I wake up and I'm just motivated to write and I want to write stuff. Some days I wake up and it's not coming to me and I just can't make that part of my brain turn on. And I'm like, I guess I could push through this, but like I'll start writing and I'll realize it's terrible or something. And sometimes I'll just write a terrible chapter that day and be like, this sucks. Can you help me fix this? Why is this bad? And some authors say that your first draft is you telling yourself the story. No one's ever going to read that but you. But until you get it all down, you don't even know what it is yet. And everything else is for everyone else. But just, having deadlines helps for that.
Yeah, but I think, Matt makes a good point where like you're going to have to figure out what schedule works for you. But don't let it languish.
Yeah. Yes. That is very true. And I think ultimately that's probably like the biggest, I don't want to say turn off, but the biggest hesitancy to collaborate is like the accountability, because, life does happen and, that is out of the other person's control. Like they can't control what happens in their partner's life. But that could also, again, be abused. And it's like, oh, that person's not being, truthful or, being as serious as the project. And that goes back to this discussion. It's like, okay, if this person's not very serious or taking this seriously as I am, I have to reevaluate and take a step back. And ultimately it's just whatever works for you. And also I would say not to do like a full-on interview of the person, but definitely get a good feel of that person to see if that person works for you and if the writing style fits. And also, as you guys mentioned, one person would probably be the writer, but one person probably a good organizer and planner. And that's probably the extent of the collaboration. And that is completely fine. You don't have to have both people write the book. It could just be on whatever thing. And it could also be an extent of, let's say you have the author and your collaborator is the narrator. Let's say you write the book and they narrate a chapter or two to build up hype. Or you have a graphic designer. That is also a collaboration. And definitely do the research, really get a good idea of the person, make sure they're honest, and also give some leeway when necessary, but also be very firm in your beliefs as like, okay, I understand this happens, but you know, we did make agreement of this, this, and this. Only boiling down to discussion and discussion. And as a final ending to this incredible episode, this is okay, this viewer actually has been watching my episodes as of late because they're actually referencing a new question. And it's kind of the similar question that I asked you guys in your first interview, but this one's tweaked a little bit more. So, as you guys have mentioned, you know, you guys have talked about a lot of great things. And of course, Matt, you also mentioned about, you know, books saying, you know, you have to write this or you got to do this many words in this many days, all of that. And there are so many of those out there, so many seminars, so many workshops about being an author, but not a lot of workshops that I have seen, or even some videos about working with another author or collaborating with another author, which is very, very unfortunate. And again, your guys' presentation was so spot on. And if you had to give another presentation on that topic of collaboration and co-authoring, what is something that you would really want to sell people and really show them about co-authoring collaboration that's also almost like a pearl of wisdom, so to speak?
I just think taking it slowly is a great idea, and communication is the most important part. So I know we said it already, but to me, that's the, like, I don't have anything I'm trying to sell anyone on it. Like, there's no specific, like, this is how you collaborate, and this is, I can show you how to do it, because every human being is different, and everyone's brain works a little differently. Everyone's motivated by different things. Everyone has different work styles and different amounts of time they can sit at a keyboard, you know, in a row. Like, I have days where I want to do that all day, and I have days where I don't want to look at a keyboard. And I've worked with collaborators who are all over that map as well. So it really is just like, talk it out before you start working on it, and work on it a little bit at a time. Like Lauren said, I gave her a lot of outs when we started working together. And I was kind of like, write as much as you feel comfortable writing. Write it if you're enjoying it. Whenever this isn't fun for you, we can stop. And I said that, like, probably so often that she thought I didn't want to work with her, and that this was my way out. But no, it was, I didn't want it to become a chore. I didn't want it to be a thing where Lauren stopped writing, or, you know, whatever. So you wrote the stuff you enjoyed and you were comfortable with, and I wrote, and then I was like, I don't want to interrupt what you're doing. I'm going to write my own book over here and get your input on it. And then I was like, oh, actually your input's really good and is helping me make my book better. And so it was a really gradual process of deciding to write together.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I agree with that. I would also say, you know, you don't have to, like, a lot of people, you know, if you enjoy, like, think about what you enjoy about writing alone. Like, everybody, you know, who's probably seeing a seminar is a writer in some way and has you know, written something. So what do I like about writing? And then think about, how would adding someone to that process make it better? Because, you know, like Matt and I talk a lot about, he's really great at world building, and he really thinks like big story, big picture. And I'm more, you know, like character focused, and I do like little picture stuff, and we kind of balance each other out. Do you feel like, you know, do you have a weakness somewhere that you would like to find somebody to help you with that? Or do you just want a hype person that's just really as excited about the project as you are? And again, it like keeps you motivated. So, you know, just think about what it is that you really like about writing, and then, you know, try to find someone who's going to only to add to that. Because again, like we said, we don't want this to be worse. Like, it's hard enough being a writer. You don't want to make it harder. How is this going to make it more fun for you?
Or if you like a lot of parts of writing, but you don't like one specific part of it, and you find a person who loves that part of it, like someone's like, I love outlining, and you're like, I hate outlining.
Great.
If you just outline
Let's
this, I'll write
together.
the book, and then we're a writing team. Awesome, that works too.
Yeah.
Perfect. And as a bonus fan question, this actually is a new one. I haven't gotten this before, but I think it's really good. And they ask, what is the one genre that you would love to collaborate on next?
Well, we're currently writing. We're currently writing like a steampunk gothic horror.
Ooh,
and we just haven't had a lot of time to like sit down and really get through that one. So I really
Lauren, on top of her full-time job, has one writing job and one illustration job right now. So
just like the calendar's just jam-packed.
Yeah.
But we have that one started, and that's the one I really can't wait to get back to, because it's a great story and it's some great characters.
And we've done a lot of the hard part already, which is we know the plot beginning to end. We've outlined it. We are doing the two main characters where it switches back and forth in perspective. So like once we sit down and work on it, we can probably bang that one out too. It's just finding the time.
Yeah. So that's the next big one.
Look for that gothic horror.
Ooh,
yeah.
Nice. Awesome. And with that, viewers and listeners, we conclude this late night evening second episode of the Writers Hub here on Tales from the Wandering Scribe. I want to give a huge thank you to my friends Matt and Lauren for coming back on the show. We wish them the very best. Now, guys, where can people find you on social media to reach out? Where can people buy copies of your books? And do you have any announcements you'd like to share with the viewers and listeners of any upcoming projects in the works, possibly board game that you guys are working on, as well as some videos, something like that?
Sure. You can find me by my name on most socials. It is Lauren Cipollo, Cipollo. I'm on Blue Sky. I'm on TikTok. I'm on Instagram. So that's the easiest way to find me. The next appearance we're going to be making is at Fall into Books Fest. That's in September. You can find that on Instagram. It's a bunch of authors, and we'll be there selling books and talking about our stuff. What's the next big thing we're working on? Well, let's say where they find you.
Yes. Hi, I'm Matt. You can find me not at Matt Conant for the most part, but at Cinevore, which is my company. So Cinevore, like a carnivore, but for film, I guess. And cinevore.com is my website. Cinevore.com/games is the games portion of the website, which currently has our first game on it called Authors of Fate, which we talked about a little bit, I think, right? Yeah. Okay, good. I remember things. And then, all of my social medias are either Cinevore or Cinevore Film, and you'll see my face probably wearing this exact shirt as the icon. So easily recognizable. And you can find our books on Amazon.
Oh, yes.
So they are Amazon exclusives, but you can get them in Kindle, you can get them in paperback, you can get the audiobooks as well, narrated by the amazing Amy Hutchins.
And if you don't mind ebooks, you can get the entire trilogy for $1.99, not even $1, 99 cents. You can get the entire trilogy on ebook.
Yep. So just look up Amazon Parallax and Lauren Cipollo or Matt Conant. It will come up. There are a number of very likely AI written Parallax books that have started to come out in the last year because they're just coming out.
Look for the beautiful covers.
Yes, look for these covers.
Yeah, you'll know.
Exactly.
When you see them.
Yes, look for these incredible covers. I got the third one right here.
Yeah, there you go.
Yes.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. So I will link all those down below in the description of this video, viewers and listeners. And if you want to see Matt and Lauren's first appearance on the show, I will link it right here above. And if you want to hear my initial impressions of Origins, I'll also link it right here. Thank everyone for joining us for this late night episode here on the channel. Again, a huge thank you to my buddies, Matt and Lauren, for coming back on the show. We wish them the very best. And if you would like to see them back for a third appearance on the show, comment down below and I'll try to make it happen. And as always, viewers and listeners, thank you for your love and support. And Make sure to check out the website, The Wandering Scribe, not Wandering. I've already expressed why that is the case. Wandering was already taken, so I had to go with Wandering, but definitely check that down below because I will be posting my full review of Origins there, and I'll also have the links to buy it as well. And until next time, this is The Wandering Scribe and The Wandering Quill signing out. Wishing you all a wonderful day wherever you are in the world, and we'll see you all in the next episode. Have a wonderful evening, everybody.